to Men on Trek. Redux.
Very special Men on Trek.
Yes. We are revisiting Season 2, Episode 6, Doomsday Machine. Originally aired on October 20th, 1967. And it was Season 1, Episode 2 of Men on Trek originally.
Oh, was it really?
Yes.
Episode 2. Episode 1 was Balance of Terror.
Yeah, episode 2 of the original, before there was video.
That's right.
And because we love our audience so much, we wanted you to see us have fun doing it.
Is that what we're doing?
That's why we're doing it.
200 subscribers.
Yes, and thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. Hope you're enjoying it. Gentlemen, Doomsday Machine.
Number 1 episode.
Unanimously, I believe.
Number one episode.
If you could only see one Star Trek episode, if you could see only one movie,
this is the one.
This is the one to see it.
Yeah.
So you gentlemen that have girlfriends who are not Star Trek fans, get her to watch this one.
You think so?
Oh yes.
Think so?
Oh yes.
It's a Uhura-less. That's the only fault I can find.
That's the only downfall.
It is.
Yeah, I don't mind not seeing Chekhov. I'm not saying that I'm not a Chekhov fan. I like Chekhov when he's used not as a sex symbol. When he's used as a crewman, then I like Chekhov. But I kind of missed Uhura. I think the actor that played the female communication officer did a great job, but it would have been nice to have had Uhura there.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd. I mean, clearly this is Season 2, Episode 6. It's kind of odd that she wasn't there, but...
Probably on some special project.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to run down the history and find out why Nichelle Nichols didn't film that particular episode.
But just awesome. Every time you see it, it's like a good book.
Yeah.
You know, I think I read somewhere that Christopher Lee said that he read Lord of the Rings once a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said he read it every year. And it's like you could see Balance of Terror.
Yeah, I never get tired. I never get tired of watching Balance.
I mean, Doomsday Machine.
Doomsday Machine. Yeah, I never get tired of watching Doomsday Machine.
Yeah,
it is my favorite.
It's a classic.
And in the remaster, there's so much more. You get so much more.
Yeah, visually, it's not. We were deprived of that as children.
Yeah.
You know, I think we were still pretty awestruck by the effects back then, and the Technicolor even now is very vivid, and it's great eye candy. But I'll tell you, the structure of the story, like if you were going to teach a class in script writing, and you know you had a DC Fontana, and you know you looked at how to tell this story.
The mother of science fiction stories.
Yeah, I don't know. You couldn't find. We tried to find some fault.
Yeah,
and really couldn't.
Yeah, they didn't.
Very tight story.
Story. No thematic errors. No plot devices. No throwaway plot devices.
And once again, you know, the great thing that Trek did then, which nobody really does now, is that your villain your villain could be one of your own. You could feel empathy for that villain, and that villain could redeem themselves.
Yes.
And the protagonist doesn't necessarily. It's not a cause and effect component of it. There was a story arc for Commodore Decker, and he followed it.
No subliminal messages.
No.
Oh, no message.
No message. Other than make sure you charge up a phaser bank if you have an opportunity.
That's right.
Carry a spare antimatter bomb.
First thing you do, charge the phasers.
Charge the phasers.
Well, no. You know, this was after school kids cartoons in the 80s. You know, what's the lesson, kids?
Do I need life support, Scotty?
Take the initiative, because knowing is half the battle.
Do I need life support, Scotty? No, I need phasers. Give me phasers.
You need both.
Yeah.
I can wear a spacesuit. Give me phasers.
So let's dive into the episode.
Another Captains episode, yes.
Absolutely.
The
quintessential Captains episode. Yeah, I think so. I think this was what got us down the path. This and Balance of Terror got us down the path of the Captains episode.
And this is the start of the second ship theory.
Oh, absolutely.
Is this the first one? Because this is Season 2, Episode 6. We have to check that.
Well, I think he's talking about for Men on Trek because it was season 1, episode 2, and that's where the Captain Daystrom second ship theory was postulated.
Always best to be second.
In this case, yes.
Yeah.
Don't want to be first.
And in this case, it's not only being the second ship, but being the right second ship.
Yes,
true.
Yeah.
So the episode opens up. The Enterprise is entering solar system L370, and they have an expectation of finding a certain number of planets, and they find nothing but rubble, but the star is still intact.
Didn't they have a distress signal?
Yeah, they were tracking a distress signal. Yeah. And at first, they weren't sure. Interesting plot point. They weren't sure what the distress signal was from until they got closer. You kind of get used to, in later Star Trek, you kind of get used to they're a bazillion miles away and they can read a postage stamp kind of stuff. And in this case, it was, okay, we have a signal. And they get closer. Hey, it's a starship. Okay, get closer. Oh, it's the Constellation.
Well, the anomaly was putting out
subspace interference.
Do you think that it was a universal distress code that you would find on commercial vessels, or do you think that Starfleet had their own coded distress signal?
I think it would be special.
Yeah, based on how they described it, they were picking up a general signal. Then when they got closer and they could clear up the interference, then they knew it was a Starfleet signal. So I would say they'd have quote unquote military channel.
So they would want a non-Starfleet vessel responding to this.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think it would be a military code.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be like, anybody that comes by can pick us up, because whoever comes by is not going to be here to help.
A general distress signal, they might pick it up, but would a civilian ship investigate?
Well, that's the point. That's the point I'm getting at. Okay, the guy in his rowboat hears it. Well, he can't help with aircraft carrier.
Yeah, that's true. But they cruise in. They find the solar system destroyed. They're tracking the distress signal. And they eventually come to the center of the center of the solar system. And there are 2 planets remaining. Neither one of them habitable, but they find the Constellation. And we get that first glimpse of this really fantastic, the remastered CGI Constellation, the wreck of the Constellation. Fantastic. It's fantastic.
Beat down.
Yeah.
Beat down. And I said this. There's something like in the visuals, like if you've ever seen like the wounded B-17s that are slowly falling out of the sky in the old World War IIs, or the battleships that are hit and they're listing. There's this visual tragedy, at least, and I feel it like when I see it, and seeing the Constellation like that. They did such a good job. It emoted that in me. I felt like this was a World War II battleship that was just getting ready to sink. The tragedy of what had happened to him was just the visual story was complete. You could tell.
Yeah. And the score, the music really drives it home.
Far better than the original. Of course, they were using limited special effects. It's not a little model hanging by a string like this. It just looks awesome.
Well, I think even in the original episode, they got that emotion out of you, but now it's just so much more powerful.
Yeah, because it's not just a little. You see the damage.
Yeah.
You really see it.
Yeah, you look closely, you can see the decks.
And I think we said, was it CBS or Paramount's their own in-house special effects did the remaster, and there was 2 things that I thought that they did that were just added to the story, and usually it doesn't. Like usually there's a visual component to it, and you're like, I'm glad they kind of cleaned that up and made it look better.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 things I think they did is that they introduced debris in almost every shot. Like if you were within the inner solar system, there were rocks flying past you and asteroids and whatever. And then there was a sort of a static shot of the Constellation. You just see this little asteroid kind of impact on the shell and just disintegrate. So it was like just that attention to detail. It's like
it makes me think about the redo of the Star Trek, the rebooting under, I think it was Bad Robot J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
And trying to upgrade the ship, the internals, to make it look, modern.
More industrial is how his look had an industrial.
But just what Paramount did with the redo of the outer animation, I didn't mind that the ship internals looked plain.
Yeah.
No.
Everything else, just when I saw the outside of the ship and how crisp it is and how it looked, I didn't worry about, because the internals, I'm not looking at the ship per se, I'm looking at the characters.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be, I don't have to have floating screens and all this stuff, because that's just fluff.
And the original design aesthetic of the interiors of the Enterprise was kind of that military, more Spartan. It makes sense. The interior fits what the outside looks like. It's what you kind of would expect. And I was always glad they didn't try to somehow tinker with the interiors using CGI.
Well, think about it. If you're on a ship and you got inertial dampeners, to limit the internal body's movement, do you want an inside of your ship with a lot of protrusions?
No.
No.
You want it as slick as possible, in case dampening doesn't work.
So in case it fails.
And your crew gets shot off in a direction and comes up against a bulkhead.
Yeah.
You want it to be smooth. You don't want a whole lot of protrusions sticking out.
This is true.
I got to go on a decommissioned World War II battleship. I don't know which one it is. Maybe it's the New Jersey or something. But you walk through there and like everything is there for a reason. Like there's no obvious sign of luxury. It's all just sort of function,
right.
And the one series that we don't talk that much about. I always felt that Enterprise was designed as a cruise ship.
Yeah, it has that vibe.
That cruise ship vibe. But to your point, like cleaning up and improving the outside graphics still balanced with what you saw internally.
Yes.
And how could that possibly be unless they had built this timeless structure of how the Enterprise functioned, and that the corridors from one deck to the next pretty much look the same, and that's what you would expect.
Right.
And it's sort of, it worked. I mean, it worked visually.
So going back to the inertial dampener, the show The Expanse, I've been going through the books, and there's one scene, and they have a scene in the show where the ship, I think the ring stops motion or limits the motion, and everybody in the ship gets wrecked because they're moving at a certain amount of speed, and the ring instantly arrests their motion of the ship, but not the people in the ship.
Right.
And there's a segment in the book where a lot of people lose their lives because of that arrested motion. You don't want all these protrusions. You want it clean. You want it smooth.
Well, yeah. I mean, what was it? Neil deGrasse Tyson says, the rotational velocity of the Earth, it's like 24,000 miles diameter, and it rotates in 24 hours. So you're moving at 1,000 miles an hour. If the Earth stopped suddenly,
you're screwed.
You're a pancake.
Yeah, you're paced.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No, that's bad.
Don't stop the rain.
That's bad.
Kirk sees the ship and he goes, "They were attacked."
Yeah, it immediately goes to red alert.
Yep, bangs on the switch. Red alert.
Red alert. And as you pointed out, Jake, as you pointed out, red shirts on the bridge when a red alert is called, and they don't do that all the time, but in a lot of episodes they do.
Type 2 phasers on the belt. Yeah.
Type 2 phasers,
Ready to rock and roll.
Ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, nobody's coming on the bridge uninvited. Nope. So they go to red alert, cut back in, and this episode is filled out with a lot of extra shots of the ship, so exterior shots that really flesh out the story in a way that they couldn't back in the 60s. It just makes it so much more enjoyable, makes it really look great. As you said, fan service. It just looks so fantastic.
Oh yeah.
But they come upon the constellation and they begin to do an analysis. Its main power is completely offline. It is on batteries and there's limited life support. The bridge has been completely destroyed.
And no life found on it.
Yeah. No life signs were scanned at the time, but they did acknowledge a subspace interference.
Yeah. And that's just great writing, because what it what it allowed was an opportunity. It wasn't like one of those Abrams mystery boxes where you've got to watch 10 episodes to figure it out. It's like they said there appears to be nothing but subspace interference may be inhibiting our ability to be accurate in this, and that's all you need. You just need a little doubt, and let's go take a look.
Right. So Kirk stands down to yellow alert when there's no immediate threat in the area, and they beam over a 6-person landing party, including Scotty and McCoy. So.
And Montgomery was one of the guys.
Well, you want your chief engineer, and you want your chief medical officer.
Yeah. Well,
in case you find something. Well, these are the
you
main
want
guys.
you
want a medical.
You want a
officer.
medic, and then you've got your damage control party. I thought it was interesting that a 6-person crew was enough to do an initial assessment and affect some repairs if necessary. It's not a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's just because Kirk didn't know what he was going to find, so
he took minimal.
Yeah, but I think he took people that he felt as though if they didn't make it back, Spock had enough to complete the mission.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, as soon as those guys beamed over, they were right at work.
Yeah.
They just immediately went to their equipment, and at one point Scotty's like, "Come on, let's go," and they headed towards a ladder to head down, and 3 of them hit it at one time. When we're going, you could just tell, these are the guys you wanted. You wanted them there.
Yeah.
Another point I like is when Kirk is talking to McCoy. He goes, "There's no coffee cups. This wasn't a
surprise attack.
A surprise attack. Nothing's left here, so they had time.
Right. They knew.
There's no residue. Oh, we got to go right now. This was a planned disembarking.
Right.
And that's kind of an homage that Cameron did in Aliens when they were first, the Colonial Marines first came in.
Mm-hmm.
They saw the coffee cup and the donut with the bite out of it.
Yeah, yeah. So whatever happened fast.
It happened fast, yeah. That's what defines good science fiction, is whether there's a coffee cup or not.
No, it's got to fit the story.
Yeah.
It's got to fit the story. The visual clues that you're left should be able to tell you something. So I know you're not a big House of Dragons fan, but in one of the episodes, the king is supposedly getting older, and he's got a disease. And the very next episode, he's missing 3 fingers or 2 fingers. They don't mention it at all. You, as a watcher, just sees it on his hand that it's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And then a week later, he's missing an arm. They never mention it. The characters in the show never mention it. But it's the visual clues left to the audience that I'm seeing this.
The progression of the disease.
And I'm getting to see the progression of the disease other than somebody in the show telling me that he has a problem and there's a progression of a disease.
That's so important it's so important to focus on this for a minute because the whole point of visual storytelling is that you don't have to have dialogue all the time.
That's right.
No.
That if the story is if you've done your homework and you've given the audience enough of character and plot that you can just show things. And I'll give you a great example for me, like a visual storytelling. It's like with Spielberg in Jaws, right? So when you would see the shark coming, all he needed to do was play some music. Yeah. And you could, when they first released Blade Runner, they had Harrison Ford do this kind of cheesy voiceover that explained every scene.
Yeah, the detective montage, the voiceover.
Yeah, and then when you see it without that, you realize that Ridley Scott was telling enough of a visual story that you didn't need that. But the studio kind of chickened out and they said you need to go for it. But it's so important because now you can't show anything anymore because I guess the assumption is that the audience isn't smart. Like modern audiences aren't smart. They want a message, but the message has to be delivered in dialogue and it has to be on point, and you have to break the fourth wall and tell them.
So going off of that theme, is it the audience is not smart or actors are no longer good at acting? You should be able to convey to me how you feel by your looks without somebody else telling me how you supposedly feel. I'm supposed to be able to look at the actor and he's acting and he should be able to convey to me through his facial expressions what he's thinking.
Yeah, but
not necessarily what he. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, a good. It's not really an argument. It's really more of an explanation of like. So an actor's job is to interpret the material under the direction of the director. So remember when Mark Hamill was talking about his direction from Rain Johnson? He said, I didn't feel this was Luke Skywalker anymore. This wasn't my Luke Skywalker. It was Jake Skywalker. In other words, he took what he did what the director wanted him to do with it.
Right.
So I don't necessarily think that we have less skilled actors. I think that we have directors that are giving direction about a story to deliver a message, not to create a performance.
A message or
the message.
You can't escape the message.
You can't escape it. But here as I said, you have Kirk and you have McCoy, and he's making basic observations on things we see and letting you know what his precepts are from what he sees.
Right. His interpretation of the events. They had time to react. This was not an instant event. This was not an overnight event. And whatever caused the crew to leave the ship was done in an orderly fashion.
And Kirk jumps to the next leap. What would cause Decker to leave his ship?
Right.
He said, I can't think of anything that would cause Decker to abandon his ship.
And Scotty says you can access the logs in the auxiliary control room and head on down. And, I think one of our favorite parts in the episode is when they enter auxiliary control and they find Commodore Decker.
No, they were going past it. They were going past that spot, and Kirk sees Decker and walks in.
Okay.
Because if you watch it closely, it looks like they were going to go past it, and Kirk looks and sees Decker and diverts into that room.
Right. And so they find Decker slumped over the console.
In a semi-catatonic state.
Right. Very much in shock. And, Kirk, it's kind of what Palpatine was talking about. Kirk's urgency. Kirk's taking this in, and he's like, this happened to a starship. This is not good. I got to find out what happened here. Because he's thinking about his ship.
Right.
He's thinking about his ship.
If it happened to Decker's,
it'll happen to me.
It can happen to me.
Decker's a Commodore. Decker's my mentor. He's kind of my hero, quote unquote. And
Decker's been there and done that.
And Decker is down.
And it was done to him.
And Decker is down. So.
And I tell you, they do such a good job, and like with the senior captains and the newer captains in the original series of that. You feel that camaraderie and respect,
It's right. It's not the young guy and I know and you old guys don't know anything.
No, not at all.
It's a lot of homage. It's a lot of respect to the old hats because the old hats have been there. They've done it. So you give respect to those guys who've gone before you.
Well, when Decker gets the stimulant and he's rubbing it and he looks up and he goes, it's Jim Kirk, and he smiles, and it's like, he's like, I'm sure Decker was part of the input of promoting Kirk. That's what you feel anyways. Right. You get that sort of thing. And then there's at one point where Kirk says, you don't have a ship anymore and you need to go to safety or something. And then you contrast that to, in the original, the first movie, the first Star Trek movie, Matt Decker's son is in command of the Enterprise. And what you see is this huge contrast between the respect that Jim Kirk was showing his father and the immediate headbutting and lack of cohesiveness between Kirk and the young Decker.
There was a loss of respect from 1960 to the movie 1970?
Well, no, what drives young Decker's dislike for Kirk though is what happened to his father.
Yeah, but culturally, there's a difference in how older people were respected then, and then how they are respected in that during the time of the Star Trek the Motion Picture. There's actually a decline of respect from youth to seniors. So Kirk's generation, those guys that have gone before, were held in high regard. coming into the 80s, they're held in less regard.
Right.
And now they're almost not regarded, regarded at all.
Now the different groups
Why?
are at each other.
Because the young people say, well, you don't know nothing about this. You don't know nothing about this. You can't tell me anything because you don't know anything about these new technologies. And that's what Decker was, the young Decker in the movie. You don't know nothing about the new shit.
Well, we relied on our elders to tell the stories, and they were a source of knowledge, and they were to teach us. And now it's like,
oh, I can get it off of YouTube.
Get it off YouTube.
Well, yeah, but as you were going to the relationships between the captains and the commodores, or the senior captains in the original series, these are the guys that taught you in the academy. They were your first captain when you got assigned, when you were a young officer, so on and so forth. You know, you came up through the ranks under them. You know them. You respect them. They're your teachers.
Right.
Answer this question, Commodore. How many stories today?
Commodore, I got demoted.
Sorry, Admiral.
Oh. You gotta say it like Khan.
Admiral. How many stories today portray the senior guy as somebody respectable?
He's not even respectable. He's like reprehensible.
That's the point.
Well,
that's the question.
There's two dynamics. The old guy has either become corrupt, or the old guy is respectable, but the young guy's still the young hothead who thinks he knows.
How many can you recall off the top of your mind where the old guy is respectable or worthy of respect?
I'm drawing a blank right now. In recent films.
See,
it depends. It depends.
It's a matter of the core of writing.
Right.
Yeah, but the dynamic's not the same.
The way the old Star Trek was written, it is inculcated in the story.
Well, yeah, because it has the powerful impact. It happens in this episode and in other episodes, like we always talk about Captain Tracy. Captain Tracy, Commodore Decker, these guys were the seasoned guys, and they were so well respected. To see them broken or turned, it hurt Kirk and company. It hurt the younger guys to see the guys that were out before them broken. You know, that's like, you know, seeing your father hurt, essentially.
Yeah, but I think the way that the story was told is that if you stick to your guns, if you follow the Prime Directive, if you stick to logic, that because like with Tracy, you kind of get where he was. You know, he had his crew die on him, and he felt as though
he was stuck on the planet.
He was stuck on a planet, and that he started to make some decisions in survival. But that implies that he was thinking that there was no hope of rescue, and he was going to kind of walk away. And you could understand under the stress he was under, and some of the other things that he was seeing, the horror of the attacks and this, that, and the other stuff. He made a bad choice. And I think when Kirk came upon him and they had their conflicts and stuff, I'm not sure if it weakened Kirk's ideals of what it means to be a captain. I think what it made him understand was that
you can break under certain circumstances.
You can break, and the best thing to do is to avoid like you said, I don't believe in a no-win situation. It's like if you believe that you've lost, then you have.
So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about with Tracy, it's A Taste of Armageddon, another Star Trek episode. Please watch it and see our review on it.
No, it's not Taste of Armageddon.
No, which one is Omega Glory?
Omega Glory.
My fault. Scratch that. Omega Glory.
Shame on you.
Oh yeah.
Well.
So let's get back to our captain and him dealing with that.
The point you were making using Tracy as an example, though, it didn't demoralize Kirk. It strengthened Kirk's resolve and his ideals.
Right.
But it did make him realize that even the best can fall.
But there was still honor given to Tracy because at the end of it, they didn't besmirch Tracy's record.
No, not at all.
So it's a matter of respect, and we don't see that in writing. The young hothead knows it all.
Well, you mean Decker's record?
No, Tracy's either.
Really?
They didn't admit. At the end, they let Tracy's record stand as just lost in the line of duty. They didn't report him.
Tracy wasn't killed. He was taken out. He was captured at the end. He didn't get killed.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
I thought he was court-martialed.
We'd have to review it. I think Mark's right.
Well, more importantly, Decker in this one, Kirk says, and Spock says to him, I assume you're going to
we'll get
enter into the record.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But so back in the episode, they found Deckard, and the performance for me.
Oh man,
the performance for me. This guy's in shock. This guy's in shock.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, this guy's in shock.
And Kirk's asking him the question.
And again,
what happened? Where's your crew?
Kirk is purely driven by a concern for his ship and crew.
Yep.
He's got Deckard, and he's almost shaking him like, tell me what happened right now.
So that I don't face
this. So I can get out of here or do whatever I need to do. Because he's looking at a guy that's technically supposed to be better than him.
Yeah, and McCoy goes, hey, back off
Kirk's
a little.
shaking him like,
back off a little.
I thought he was going to slap him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If that was 10 years prior, that type of story, doesn't that when you, that's when you slap the guy.
Yeah.
But see, with this level of respect, but you don't slap a senior officer.
That's right.
So McCoy steps in. He's like, hey, take it easy. He's in shock, And Kirk's like, we got to know what happened.
Got to know what happened.
We need to know what happened.
Second ship, baby. I got to know what's going down.
What's going on? And the subspace interference is increasing, which is, again, the tightness of this story. You don't pay attention to it, but as they lead up to the big reveal, the subspace interference is getting worse. After the fact, you realize the Doomsday Machine is closing on them, and they just haven't detected it yet.
Yeah. That's another thing. So that type of story trope, you know, where it's like, something flies in or something happens.
You never see it coming.
Suddenly here.
Just pops up.
Or we just need to recalibrate the frequencies or whatever like this. This was used in a way that you never questioned it. When it started to increase in the beginning, like in this part of the story, you weren't sure what that meant, but you knew it wasn't something good. And then when it was finally tied to that, to the machine, it was almost like a theme song or like
it's almost the music in Jaws.
Yeah, it was almost the music in Jaws. It's like, subspace interference is increasing. It's like, oh, here it comes.
If they had made it now, they might even had you hearing the static, over their communicators a little more.
But it's done so subtly.
Yes,
it blow you.
You don't pay any attention to it.
You don't pay attention to it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, suspect. Whatever. What's going on? And he's shaking Deckard, saying, "Hey, tell me, what happened to your ship? What happened to your crew?"
Right. And Deckard's just,
he snaps out enough to start answering.
And he's like, we came in, we were investigating, we saw this thing cutting up the planet, and the fight begins.
He said, a thing right out of hell.
Right out of hell. He said, Kirk, they say there's no devil, but there is. I saw it.
But it was great in directing this. The contrast you could see between Decker and where he was now in his voice on his log.
Yes.
Because his log was, you heard that Commodore.
Confidence.
You heard that.
Confidence.
20, 30 years of experience. He goes, First Officer Yamato, and the fourth planet is being,
Simply put, the man on the log is not the man sitting in the chair at that desk.
No. However many days later, it's a completely different deal.
You want to see a broken guy?
Yes.
A broken starship captain? There he sits.
Even from the filmmaking standpoint, the way they light Deckard versus when they're switching between Deckard and Kirk, the lighting difference it's subtle, but it delivers.
And the makeup, it's stark. Deckard looks like he hasn't had a rest in 10 days or something.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, there's a finality in the original series when someone breaks, in that there's maybe redemption, but there's no recovery. It's not there's not a magic pill, or there's not a body of forgiveness that's going to bring that person back.
Not instantly.
No. Well, even then, it's the final solution to Decker's issue is not going to be a week of R&R.
Right. He's done.
Yeah. You don't find your way out of this box. This box is fatal.
As we have proved on Men in Track over the course of our episodes, that one mistake in Star Trek is career ending.
Can be.
And Decker is done no matter what happens.
Yeah, he'll never command again.
He's done.
Yeah.
They'll sit him on a spaceport somewhere, and okay, you can administer this, but you'll never be on the starship again.
Hey, commanding a starbase is fine. You get your own personal transporter.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Commanding a starbase is okay.
But Kirk's asking a question, and Decker starts to answer.
Right.
And he goes, I beamed, what happened to your crew? He goes, I beamed them down. That's what you're supposed to do. My ship was dead, and I got to get my crew off before the monster
I stayed behind.
Destroys, and I stayed behind. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
Captain goes down with the ship.
I'm supposed to stay behind with the ship. He goes, where's the crew? I beamed them down to the third planet.
And go, Matt, there is no third planet.
He goes, right, Kirk goes, there is no third planet, and Decker gives a response.
Don't you think I know that?
Can you imagine you've done all that you think is right, and it still blows up in your face?
But not anymore.
He did what he was supposed to do according to his understanding.
Right.
All the years of
all
service.
He knew how to do.
I'm getting my crew to safety, and I'm gonna go down with the ship. But it doesn't turn out like.
Not wrapping your head around the fact that you're dealing with something that will devour a planet.
If you put it in more terrestrial, Earth-like terms, it would be like you were a ship's captain and you put your crew in a lifeboat and then somebody drained the ocean.
Yeah. It's like that's not supposed to happen.
That's not supposed to happen.
That's not how this works. Yeah.
Right. Someone drains the ocean. It's jarring.
Yeah.
To think that he's doing everything he's supposed to do, and he loses his crew. What's so jarring about it? He's on the ship. He goes, they take another hit and they lose transporters. So they're the Doomsday device is now tearing up the planet, and his people are calling for help.
Yeah, but put that in context.
And he can't get them off.
Put that in context.
Off the planet.
These are your brothers and sisters or your children.
These are your children. He's a Commodore. They're his children.
And you have 400 plus voices that you know personally. You know every one of them. And they're screaming, help us. And there's nothing you can do.
Yep.
And the thing is, when you think about there was nothing behind the attack that could be used as a crutch by the writers to initiate emotion. So in other words, they weren't killed by the Klingons, or
there's
there
no
wasn't
provocation.
a disease or provocation.
There's nobody to hate.
Right, there's no one to hate. There's nothing to hate. I mean, at this point, you don't know what happened, but when you do know what happened is that you find out that they just got in the way of something.
What is the line used in Terminator? He can't be reasoned with.
He can't be bargained with. He absolutely will not stop. That's what he does. That's all he does.
And it's a machine.
Right.
And that's what the Doomsday device is.
Yeah.
It's a machine. There's no bargaining with it.
You touch on an excellent point. In this episode, in other episodes we talk about it, there is a villain and there is an antagonist here in Decker. But you don't have anyone in this episode to hate per se.
Right. And
the Doomsday Machine does not evoke. You don't hate it, you fear it.
Right.
It's scary.
It's supposed to be Moby Dick, right?
Yeah.
And it's the whale, and he's Ahab. But I think with Moby Dick, it was always that I always felt that the story was about that there was this whale that had been attacked many times, and there were other whales that died, and that it was like there was emotion behind it. It just wasn't a wild animal. There was a purpose behind it.
It was fighting back.
And this machine there's nothing of that to that, so that the writers and the director and the actors have to create that emotional fabric for you to lean against. And if they didn't do it well, the story would have been a joke, and it wasn't.
The difference in Moby Dick is Ahab is going after the whale for his personal loss of his limb and the loss of his ship.
Yes.
Deckard is fixated because he lost his crew, the people he was responsible for. That's his whole issue.
Right.
And then from that moment on, for the rest of the episode, Deckard's not worried about himself.
Right.
Right.
He's worried about the people
Right.
that this machine will wipe out.
Yeah, more destruction.
He's willing to. Decker is willing to pay the ultimate price with your life and his own to stop the ravages of this machine.
Right.
But that one episode, it's like I beamed him down. He's like, "Don't you think I? What else? What else am I supposed to do?"
You just really lock onto the anguish of that.
Oh yes.
You know, just that. You know, and it's like, why is this man broken? Well, there you go.
There it is.
There you go. Was this
And it didn't take us half the show to see that either. It was
Losing-
right up front.
losing the ship itself would have been enough. You know,
I don't think so. Not for a
Well-
man like Decker,
well,
or
what-
for a guy who becomes a captain.
Yeah, what I mean is, physically losing the ship, taking a loss like that, would have had an impact. But you can totally see how this guy's broken down completely with the death of the crew. You know, that's a whole nother level.
Well, he's lost everything.
He was willing to lose his life.
Yeah.
He was willing to lose his ship.
Right.
What he tried to do is preserve the crew.
And ironically, in that moment, which brings us to something else we were talking about. Ironically, in that moment, alone on the Constellation, if he had impulse control and figured
he
out,
would have did it.
if he had impulse control and figured out what was figured out later on, he could have got something done. But they go forward.
Well, the other thing is too is that, you know, I mean, I think Roddenberry did a great job, and so did the writers. Is that starship captains were the best, but they were still human. Like Decker was pretty much done. I think he would have died in that chair. I don't think there was anything really left at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, McCoy came, and I assume it was a stimulant that he gave him, and other things, and then that kind of got him up and running. But you know, there was no superhuman component. Although, you know, when you see Tracy, you know, throw Kirk around like a rag doll, sometimes you think it's like, he's got a Vulcan uncle in him or something like that. Because they're still human beings. They have that fragility, but they're
not
competent and capable.
They're not cardboard characters.
Right.
No.
There is a depth to the character. Whether you agree with Tracy or like Tracy or not, there is a depth to the character. There is depth to Decker.
And even though Decker is the quote unquote bad guy in the episode for much of the episode, when you really watch it, because we all kind of touched on it when we were watching it again this time, and we didn't touch on it before. Decker wants revenge for his crew, but that's not really his driving factor. So Decker is still trying to do the right thing.
For the overall plan.
Right, for the big picture.
Big picture.
He's trying to do the right thing, but he's compromised because of his trauma. So he wants to do the right thing, but he's not thinking clearly. So he's not a villain per se, but his irrational behavior brings him into conflict with the rest of the crew.
Well, he's further along the trauma spectrum and the grieving spectrum than the Enterprise is, because the Enterprise hasn't lost yet.
Right.
But to your point, you know, you'll hear him talk about the big picture, like,
right,
we've got to stop this before it gets to the Rigel colony. And Spock and
tens of
Kirk are
millions of
both
people.
like, I'm worried about this ship right now. Like,
Right.
that's my main concern. Yeah. Do I think that it's important that we stop it before it gets to Rigel? Yeah. But guess what? If we don't, and the ship is going to survive, then that's what we're going to do.
No, the way. So we gotta get there. But the way Spock does it is like Rigel's done.
Right.
Spock's doing the math.
Spock's already written Rigel off.
Right.
Yes.
And in any other scenario or any other writing, Spock would automatically be the villain.
Right.
Right.
He's written off 1 billion people.
Right.
Right.
Nope, they're dead.
But he's just done the math. He just knows. He knows better to warn Starfleet and mask some kind of response at the cost of Rigel than to stay out here and get creamed and Starfleet doesn't know what's coming. That's his rationale. And he's right.
Yeah.
You know. But Decker's like, no.
Decker's hoping that we can do something.
Well, that's where he's across the line, or he's irrational. He's got the same tools he had 2 days ago. expecting a different outcome.
So we skipped it. Kirk and Decker have the conversation,
Right.
and then Spock calls in and says, "Hey, the
subspace interference is increasing.
Subspace interference is increasing." So Kirk says, "Let's get Decker off."
Deckard and McCoy go back to the ship.
Off the ship,
Right.
and Decker doesn't want to go, and Kirk tells him he has to grab him again and say, "Look, your ship is gone.
Your ship's gone.
It's
dead.
nothing but a Hulk."
It's a Hulk. It's done.
Well, don't miss. There's this one part, and I think it runs. There's this competency that's running in the background, and we see it with Scotty. That it becomes evident later on in the thing. But one of the things that Kirk says is that as soon as they get on the auxiliary bridge and they're starting to look at the logs, he says, send all this stuff to Spock. Like he wants Spock working in parallel as they're doing their investigation.
Right.
Like that's the competency of Kirk, is that Kirk is managing and we saw like with the Gorn, like, you know, he's trying to man the grenade launcher and give instructions at the same time. He's managing what's happening here, but he says, take this information, get it to Spock, because I can't look at it right now and Spock can. And that way when he communicates with Spock's like, it's a robot, it's got comes within range, it's got an energy weapon, it does this, that, and the other stuff, and he's already got this guy's working on the stuff. Right.
So collectively, you know, we touched on the differences in approach of captains. Collectively, Kirk's crew, Kirk participating, has a real good analysis of this thing they haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
And all they really got from Deckard was that it had an anti-proton beam that was cutting up the planet, and that it was very powerful and that it burned through their shields. But they've extrapolated just from his description and the logs and the very quick analysis. This is what it does. This is probably how it works.
Well, Spock would have all the sensor readings that the Decker ship had taken. So he's got more than what Decker's just saying.
Right.
He's got all the sensor readings, and Spock can take those and lay them into formats of other energy devices and say, okay, this thing's got this much power, blah, 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 and relay that according to what the Enterprise can take.
Well, I think when Kirk, you know, they beam him, he says, you got to go over, you don't have a ship anymore. But he goes, get ready to beam us over there. Because I think what Spock and Kirk has immediately come to the conclusion is, we can't beat this.
All right, we got to get out of here.
we have to get out of here. And there's no dishonor in living to fight another day. Like they're getting like the episode would have been over. Like he would have beamed over in his maximum warp, get us out of here.
Well,
and they would have called it in.
But a couple things happen as a concession to respect for Decker. One, when Decker has his breakdown, and we talked about Kirk almost wants to comfort him or starting to comfort him, but then the business of the analysis and figuring out what's going on takes precedent. And then the other concession, Decker's like, my ship. And he's like, Kirk, we'll take it in tow.
So right before Decker...
We'll take it in tow.
Right before Decker gets told he's got to go to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And Decker's breaking down again, as you said, and Kirk wants to not so much embrace him, but comfort him.
He leans into it.
And the loss. But Scotty said, hey, we got a report to give you.
Right. Business.
And business takes precedent over feelings.
And also...
Supposed to.
Hold on. Let's stick here for a second. Business takes precedence over feelings.
Survival.
I can't help how you feel, but I can do something about the information I'm receiving to move the issue along, fix our problem.
Mm-hmm. And
that's a basic 180 turn, I think, in storytelling.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So back then the message was, we don't have time for your feeling. We're going to survive, and then you can have your feeling.
Right.
Now it's
feelings.
Have your feeling, even if it means that we're all going to die.
After we survive, you can get your comfort dog.
Right.
We'll get you back to Starbase.
Service dog.
We'll get you a little comfort room, little padded room, and a comfort dog.
Yeah.
But we got to survive first. So table your feelings.
And also,
so that we can get the H up out of here.
Also, in this point in the series, kind of sticking with the Jaws analogy, almost, this is when the clock starts, when it really starts.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The realization, as Jim pointed out, the realization that
there's something in the water you can't deal
with. This thing's horrible. Whatever it is, we probably can't deal with it. We need to go, and they're not aware of it yet, but it's coming. And the clock really starts at this moment where they try to get underway and get out of Dodge.
What's the Jaws theme? Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, the fin. Because that's the moment, Enterprise gets underway, and they cut to that great remastered shot.
Beautiful shot. Beautiful shot. Top down shot. Beautiful shot of it towing
they're towing the Constellation, but it comes up behind them. It comes up, and it's got that slow turn, and you see the maw of it, and this is always what struck me about the Doomsday Machine. Objectively, it's kind of a silly design, something somebody just came up with real quick, but it works. It evokes
fear.
It evokes that fear. It evokes that threat. It's like, man, this thing's bad, and it's just an ice cream cone with fire inside. I mean, it's just, but it does the job.
So what it brings to my mind is Frank Herbert Dune's giant sandworm.
Oh, the worms? Yeah. The maw of the worm?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
giant sandworm.
Yeah.
Well, it reacts in the same way.
It does.
If you're within a certain amount and you're making a certain amount of commotion, whether it's energy or noise, is going to come and it's going to stop it. And if you stop doing it, it goes away. It's not motivated by revenge. There's not like some ancient.
It's not the villain.
Yeah, it's not. It's just doing what it does.
It's a runaway machine.
It's
doing what it does.
It's just tracking target. It's tracking energy signatures and stopping them.
Right.
And refueling. And if refueling happens to be a habited planet,
oh well.
Because it's not looking for the people. It's looking for the planet. You said, it's draining the ocean.
So Decker gets over, and as soon as they beam onto the Enterprise,
he goes to the bridge.
They get a red alert.
Well, no, McCoy's taken him to sick bay, and all of a sudden they get the red alert, and then they both run to the bridge.
Which is a mistake.
Yeah, McCoy should have made him go to the sick bay.
Nothing McCoy can do on the bridge.
No. He's just following his patient. Because he intends to force Deckard back into sick bay at some point.
No, I think Deckard was following him.
Yeah, I agree.
Think so?
Yeah. McCoy,
McCoy ran to the bridge.
McCoy ran to the
and
bridge.
Deckard followed him.
Okay. See, McCoy could have saved the day right there.
Yep.
Saved the day. Force your patient to go to sick bay.
Instead of blaming Spacco.
But they get to the bridge. Spock is already, he's already told Sulu, put the hammer down, let's go. And they're finding out they can't outrun it. They're more maneuverable than it is, but it's a miles long thing. That makes sense. And
they still have warp, but in impulse is the
issue.
They're having an issue.
They can't outrun it. I'm assuming they couldn't go to warp with the Constellation in tow. That's my assumption.
Yes.
If you know different out there, put it in the comments. But I don't think so.
Scientifically, that's a problem.
The way the warp bubble supposedly works.
They never would have gotten anywhere. You can't. Impulse is what? 0.9?
Impulse is basically light speed, or just under light speed.
You know how slow that is? Compared to warp?
Well, yeah. Well, no, I said they couldn't go to warp towing the Constellation.
You couldn't get anywhere at base light speed. Not in the Star Trek universe.
No.
Well, wasn't that the issue? Where was it? It was where No Man Has Gone Before. Remember?
Yeah.
I am great. You are great. No. Pray to me, Jim.
Yeah.
Where they're like, what they say, star bases that were days away now
are months away.
Months away. Yeah.
So McCoy, they run to the bridge, and Spock is trying to deal with the Doomsday Machine.
Mm-hmm. And Decker initiates his privilege as a Commodore.
Well, not yet. There's a key scene, and what happens is that they get hit, okay? And Sulu's thrown out of his chair, the navigator's thrown out of his chair, and then we get this great great opportunity for these senior officers to demonstrate their competency. So both Spock and Decker throw themselves at the front console and they stabilize it. And there's a look between them. Spock looks at him and Decker looks at him, and in that moment, what you feel is this promise that Decker is there to help, like he's going to help him.
And also in respect.
Yes.
Decker still got his helmsman skills after all these years.
Yeah.
and Spock's on there, and they get the ship stay, and they do a great thing here, and it's really quick. The remaster guys, the CGI guys, throw in a scene that was not there before of the Enterprise kind of off kilter, falling off its, almost the physical effect of the hit is that the Enterprise has been thrown sideways and off course.
And you see the breaking of the toe.
Yeah, breaking of the toe.
Yeah.
And it's a few seconds, but it's a great visual shot that we didn't have in the original.
Well, think about this from storytelling. So what happened there that you didn't need to do, but it made the tapestry so much richer of what the story was. So what you saw was they took a moment to establish almost a trust between Decker and Spock.
Yes.
That Decker wasn't insane, he was still competent to do things.
Right.
There was a smile from Decker of like, I'm still useful, right?
Right.
So then when he does go 180, it makes you feel like you're one of the crew members,
You're
because
shocked.
the crew members are looking up and you're an audience member looking up and going, well, wait a second, Dad's drunk, he's stumbling around, and the symbolism.
Are we gonna let Dad drive?
That's right. We're gonna let Dad drive.
Drunk.
Yeah.
Mom, he's drunk. Don't let him behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And you see the constellation kind of falling away.
Oh.
None of that. You don't see that subtle storytelling anymore.
No, it's so blatant.
You don't see
everything's
it.
so blatant now.
Because
A crew member would say it.
Right.
they're taking they're taking you right up to that moment. They're setting you up. Decker's one of us. He's a Starfleet officer. He's a good guy. See, he's doing all the right stuff.
Yep.
He's an older Kirk. We're fine.
Yep.
Everything's fine.
Yep.
Until you find out Dad's drunk.
That's right.
That's gonna get us.
That's good.
That's gonna sound like get us. They take the hit, and Spock's assessment. He's like, "That was horrible. We can in no way take that too many times." And he's saying, "We got lucky. The stuff that was broken was minor.
Right.
We're still operational."
And the Doomsday Machine broke off.
And the Doomsday Machine broke off.
Yeah. And McCoy even says it. He goes, calculating our odds and the damage in which we took. It seems like we did well or something. And McCoy goes, so you're saying we got lucky?
We got lucky. Yeah.
He said, I think I said that.
I think I said that.
Yeah.
But this is when Decker reasserts himself.
Right.
Well, here's where Dad wants to drive.
Well, also he's heard the extrapolation of the thing's course. It's heading for Rigel, where there's hundreds of millions of people.
Well, after the first hit, Decker's standing behind Spock. He says, "Report."
Yeah.
And Spock just instantly
gives him the information.
You're the admiral, or the Commodore.
Well, that's what a Commodore is, a one-star
I know.
admiral.
So Spock automatically gives in to Decker on that because he is of higher rank and he has the right to know what's going on. And then Decker wants to assume authority over the ship, which is his right.
Absolute right.
But the problem is Decker's fixated, like he said, when they asked Sulu, what was the course it's taking, and it's going to lead it through the heart of the Federation,
right?
Heart of the galaxy,
the densely populated sector,
and it's heading towards Rigel. Once again, Decker's thinking about the big picture. The job of Starfleet is to protect the allied worlds.
Right, the people.
There's
the beings.
Once again, great performances, great directing, great story. Because what Decker initially says is he almost backs Spock fully into a corner. Spock is like, our mission is to do this, and Decker goes, our mission is to protect lives. Do you dispute that? He just basically says to them, he goes, you want to turn around and run, and really what we're supposed to do
is give our lives.
Right.
And you see, they show Spock looking at him.
Spock never answers that question.
He never answers that question. He doesn't answer that question.
Because Decker's 100% right.
He is.
So Spock delivers a great critique of his results.
The shutdown. and who's got the guts to write that anymore? Because he says to them, he goes, he says something about, we've got to destroy it. And he says,
gotta
well,
attack that
it's
thing.
impossible to destroy it. And he goes, I wasn't close enough.
I got to get closer.
I got to get closer. And he goes,
Tried that already.
How
did it work out for you?
Spike
a
said-
dead
Spike-
crew and a wrecked ship.
Yeah, Spike's like, all that got you is a dead crew and a wrecked ship. Oh. And they play, and the music kicks in, and it's just like, ooh.
So 1 second, there's almost I won't say a love, but
The camaraderie.
deep camaraderie.
Yeah.
And in a heartbeat, it's gone.
Yeah, they're adversaries.
It's gone.
Right.
It's like, okay, you got who do I trust in? Now we understand that Spock is one of the main characters. He's a known quantity. We've seen Deckard do what he thought was right and it go bad.
But it's great writing that in that moment you're gonna lean towards Spock because he's your guy, he's your character. But the fact that there's an argument there,
You're right.
the fact that you can look at it and go, well, I kind of feel like Decker's right.
Well, Spock.
We got to do something.
Spock's silence acknowledges
Yeah, that Decker's right.
that Decker is right.
But then you're back into it from the other point of view of protect the ship. Spock's protecting the ships, therefore
Spock's protecting the ship so that they can get away to notify Starfleet. And Decker's like, if this is going to cost our life, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
right. But we have to stop
We
this
need
thing.
to try to stop it before billions of people die. And as I said before, in any other show, in any other writing, Deckard would be the hero, Spock would be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Spock wants to cut and run and let billions of people die. And Deckard's like, no, I'm going to do the best I can, even if it costs me my life and the life of these 400 individuals.
Right, even if I break another starship.
What's that to a planet?
Nothing.
The good of the many outweigh
Yeah,
the needs of the one or the few?
Right.
allegedly.
So he calls the reg out.
Yeah, he calls out the reg, says why he can take command of the ship.
And Spock steps aside.
Spock steps aside.
And McCoy loses his cookies.
Yeah, he does.
That's great. That's McCoy's job.
To
McCoy.
lose his cookies?
Well, yes, because what they do, and it's done so well, you barely pay attention to it. You have the cold hard logic of Spock, because Spock doesn't get emotional. I mean, you could probably almost infer some underlying emotion in Spock's decisions because he wants to do what Kirk would want done, and he wants to protect the ship.
Well, he regulates his voice for humans.
Yes.
He put, when he says, what did it get you? A wrecked ship and a dead crew.
Right.
Like, it's not that he was feeling...
Say, see the logic.
Right. Well, what he was saying is, I'm going to say this in a way that you can feel it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't feel it.
I don't feel it.
You can feel
But
it.
you need to hear this.
But the flip side of that is you got McCoy, who's on 10 most of the time. Like, you can't do that. You just you blinking blanket people. You stupid idiots. What are you trying to do?
Spock, do something.
And McCoy's doing what McCoy does. He's like Decker.
And for a second, Deckard's worried.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He sits up.
He's worried because Spock goes, look, unless you can write him off as being mentally...
No, if you can
impaired,
write him off.
McCoy gets disrespectful. He's like, Decker, you blinking blanking, sir.
Sir.
And Spock and Decker goes after McCoy like, I'm a Commodore, dude. You better know your place. Tell him, Spock. Spock knows his place. Tell McCoy to know his place. And Spock goes, well, yeah, McCoy, you should be in your place unless you can declare him unfit, in which case we can throw him out that chair. And that's when Decker's like, ooh, and the lighting even changes.
Yeah.
Decker's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And I don't know if they're in on it or it's just everybody doing their thing, but the black security guard in the background
Yeah.
is staring at Deckard like, one word,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna jump on you.
Yeah.
Beat you down, old man.
One word word from the Vulcan, and I'm gonna get you.
Morale and engagement of the Enterprise crew is extraordinarily high.
Yeah. Him and Montgomery are standing by the door like we'll do it.
That's
somebody say something.
We'll burn him down.
I know. Somebody say something. We'll get him.
Yeah.
And McCoy's like, And McCoy's all set to lie. McCoy's all set to be like, McCoy's like, I'll certify that right now. And Decker's looking like, you know, and Spock, he's like, unfortunately,
you're gonna have to produce.
You haven't actually examined him yet, and you'd have to produce your examination.
But in any other property,
they'd have beat Deckard up.
McCoy would have lied.
Yeah.
The next guy would have signed onto it.
Yeah.
And they would have removed Deckard by a lie.
Yeah.
And justified it because it was a lie for the crew.
But that's not a crew worth saving.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
But in this case, what they keep their honorable stance.
Right.
Although their honorable stance
puts them in a bad position.
Puts them in the hands of a drunk. I won't say it.
puts them in the hands of an obsessed Commodore.
Right.
Right. But they have to do it because they have to remain a crew that's worth saving.
Right.
As soon as they throw all that away and go there, then you as an audience that's watching this, you go,
no longer respect the crew.
Yeah, I don't care about them now.
They're a rabble. They're a rabble at that point.
Yeah. They've been morally compromised, and you're just.
You see McCoy be deflated, and you see Deckard. He brings back up.
McCoy's looking at Spock like, why do you always have to do that? You know, why do you always have to? But that's the great constant byplay between the two of them. So, Deckard takes command and takes the Enterprise into the attack.
There we go.
Yeah. And pre-photon torpedoes. I find myself wishing somebody would have had to noodle out how to make that look. A photon torpedo attack on the Doomsday Machine. I'd love to see it. But this is pre-photon torpedoes. They hadn't thought them up yet.
Were they bounced off? Like the phasers did?
No, they just
impacted and exploded. Done nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. This would look cool.
Yeah.
But they do a great job of showing the Enterprise swoop in and the scale, the size of the Doomsday Machine in relation to the Enterprise. And the phaser attack, which is pointless, and they immediately tell Deckard, you know, we're doing nothing. You know, we're going all out. We're hitting it with everything we got.
Well, Spock is like a play-by-play NFL announcer. It's like that was ineffective. We've taken a hit. That was ineffective. We taken another hit. We can't take another hit. That was ineffective. We're too close.
And in the backdrop of all this, on the
communications,
Kirk is dealing. What is the Constitution?
Yeah.
Constellation.
Kirk is trying to get the Constellation up. Him and the
crewmen working on the monitor.
Him and Scotty.
Montgomery.
Montgomery's working on the engines. Mm-hmm. Scotty's working on the engines, and the crewmen's helping Kirk get the monitors back up. Mm-hmm. And then while this is going on with Deckard and Spock and the Doomsday Machine, Kirk finally gets the monitors up, and he looks. He goes, "What the H am I looking at?"
He's like, "What's this?
What the H am I looking at? What's happening here?"
Well, you see the Enterprise almost looking like a little
toy,
yeah,
like firing on this
monstrosity. And you realize this is Kirk's first time seeing it,
right?
And he's like, whoa, what is happening here? Somebody get me communications, you know. So Kirk's calling over to the Enterprise like, what are you doing?
That doesn't get through.
No,
he doesn't get through.
Yeah. So they continue the attack, and ineffectual as it is, it looks fantastic, you know. And the thing turns on the Enterprise and really begins to hammer it. And you get this byplay from the communications officer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the decks are being being shattered.
She's getting this instantaneous damage report with each consecutive hit, and they're hull breaches, mass casualties on deck 3 is bad. You know, shields are almost down. Now, one thing I picked up on in this is the Enterprise's shields. I mean, for what they're taking, the shields are considerable. Because initially they weather 1, they weather 2, 3 they begin to take damage, 4 shields down. But considering what they're being hit with,
right, something that chops up a planet.
The Enterprise's shields it's one of the few times you really get a feeling of, because most of the time they're riding around the shields. The shields go down very quickly for whatever.
Well, you and I always we've talked about this many times. In the Changeling. In the opening scene, the Changeling hits them with an energy blast, and Spock says that was equivalent to 96 of our photon torpedoes.
Right.
And I know Captain Daystrom always felt that was
excessive.
an inflated number.
But if you think that they can take 100 photon torpedoes and the shields are still up.
What you must grasp is that a starship is a awesome tool.
Mm-hmm. It's
and
powerful.
a very powerful,
extremely powerful
tool. Now it can't cut up a planet, but it can decimate the surface of a planet.
Given time.
General Order 5, 3.
The starship is it's an awesome device.
General Order 42 or something.
Yeah.
So while this is going on, they get hit again and they sort of lose shields.
They lose warp drive.
And they get hit. Lose shields, lose warp drive,
right.
And they get
transporters offline.
They get put in a tractor beam.
Yeah, and they're getting hauled in.
And once again, Decker and Spock go at it.
Right.
Decker wants to turn the ship back towards the planet destroyer and try to shoot at it.
Right.
And Spock's like, "Look, we got to get out of here.
We got 60 seconds to break contact,
or we never will."
Right.
And he goes, "If you don't, this looks like you want to give your
harm
life.
yourself."
Yeah. If you don't, this looks like you're intentionally causing the destruction of the ship.
Right. And if that's the case, I have a right to remove you.
Right. You're not acting in a way that's demonstrating that you
care for the ship.
You care for your
or
ship.
the life of the people on the ship.
Right.
And so Decker backs down, but when Spock tells Sulu to do something, it's too late.
It's too late. They're getting pulled in.
It's too late. Now, Kirk, when watching this, finally can get in communications.
Right. He says what he says.
No. Before that, he calls Scotty. He goes, "Hey, do we got power? Can we move the ship?" And Scotty goes, "Yeah, we got power." He goes, "Great, Scotty." And then he goes, "Do we have phasers?"
No, he said, no. He was speaking to himself. He goes, I just wish that we had some phasers. And Scotty's like, "You've got them.
You got one bank."
I've got one bank recharged. And I even said this when I was a kid. Seeing it for the first time, that was my first experience with what I would say is somebody who's very competent.
Yes.
Like Scotty is not only doing these obvious repairs, but he's thinking about every scenario.
He did what wasn't asked for of him.
Took initiative.
Instead of just doing the bare minimum, which a lot of people do today.
Right.
He took initiative and went above and beyond.
He did what was needed, not what was asked.
Yeah. And Scotty's
it wasn't
like,
even known it was needed.
No,
You've
it was
earned
known
your
it
pay
was
for the
needed.
week.
I always need guns. Don't you always need? I need
Well,
guns.
remember, we've said it and we'll say it again. It's Scotty's ship.
It is Scotty's ship.
And, when he beams onto another ship, he's thinking, how do I keep this thing together? How do I keep this captain from ruining another one of my ships?
Hey, man.
And we need to have faith.
But as Kirk says, you earned your salary.
I'm turning a wrench on an impulse drive, and I happen to look over and see a working phaser bank.
So as the Enterprise is in the tractor beam and they're being dragged in. Now the Constellation.
Yep. It gets underway.
Now has power.
Scotty has to rewire the controls to the warp engine control to make the impulse engine work.
Now they have power. They can move, and they have phasers.
Phaser.
Well, one bank.
Like that.
One bank. So they're able to distract the planet killer because
draw it away from
instead of an inert ship, there's a functioning moving ship.
Right.
Had another thought about, you get so used to there being holes in the plot. When they did that for a second, I was like, wait a minute. Why didn't it just swallow the Constellation beforehand? Because the Constellation's warp drive, it drained its warp core. It drained its warp drive, so there was no energy source. There was no need. There was no need to swallow.
Right.
It wasn't a tasty.
It was not tracking on sensors anymore.
Hamburger.
It might not have been programmed to recognize ships as a power source to consume. Remember, it's going and consuming planets.
Right.
It's not chasing ships. Planets don't move around.
Yeah.
I can go to a planet. I can cut a planet up and get my power from it.
But the consistency in the writing. Once the Constellation was a dead ship and there was no power, it dropped it. So no need to consume it. Because for a second I was like, plot hole, and I was like, no, not a plot hole.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to eat something that it can't get
anything from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess then the argument could be if it's taking pieces of debris, which is rock and things which are inert, and then it's changing that. Then the inert component of the ship might be able to convert that to
the
energy.
density of a solid rock.
That's
in
true.
A hollow ship.
Yeah. The energy yield is too low for the work it has to do.
So Kirk is able to swoop in and distract it enough for the Enterprise to be set free. And instead of just running away, Decker goes, "That's my boy Kirk." And he goes, "Now with 2 ships,
Yeah, we'll beat this thing.
we can beat this thing." So he goes, because the planet killer, Doomsday Machine, focuses on the Enterprise, and not the Enterprise, the Constellation. And the Constellation would be done,
Yeah, real quick.
if Decker didn't recommit.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the loss of the Constellation, there would have never been a way to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
And the billions of people on Rigel would be.
And Starfleet would not have a chance to respond either way.
Well, eventually it would have came into that part of the galaxy. Right. You're saying that course was, but you wouldn't have the Enterprise with Kirk and Spock on it to fight it.
Right. No warning.
Yeah.
So Kirk diverts it. It turns towards Kirk. Decker re-engages, and it's a back and forth with the device moving from one ship to another as they try to figure it out. And then you have the issue because Kirk wants to know what's going on with my ship.
Right.
He said, "Let me." He calls in, and Deckard answers. He's like,
"Where's Spock?
Hold on. Why am I talking to you?
Yeah.
Where's Spock?
Where's the guy left in charge?"
Where's Spock?
He goes, "I'm in charge now."
He goes, "I want to talk to Spock."
No, he goes, "Are you the lunatic that's trying to destroy my ship?" He says lunatic.
Yeah, he just goes off. Kirk doesn't care about the regs. He's like, "Look, this is my ship, buddy."
He's like, "What are you doing?"
So there's a prime difference. Kirk is willing to give his life for the ship.
Yes.
For the ship.
He wants to preserve it.
Now, Deckard was willing to go down with the ship. Deckard's willing to give his life for his people, per se. Deckard's looking at the overall picture. It's the macro and micro.
Yeah.
Deckard's looking at the big picture, and Kirk is looking at the immediate picture, the micro, his ship, his immediate crew. And like I said before, and I'll say it again, when you look at these type of things, one guy's listed as a villain and one guy's listed as a hero.
Right.
Under normal writing.
But really, there's an argument there.
There's an argument.
There is an argument. Deckard's not, methods aside, he's not wrong.
No, he's not.
Methods aside, he's not wrong.
I've always had a problem with this in the writing between what Spock said and what Deckard says. It works out, but Deckard, I think, is right. You got to try.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put forth that effort, even though it seems like it's an impossible odds. What did Kirk say in the movies? I don't believe in impossible odds.
Then yeah,
No win scenario. You
Nope.
never know until you try.
The proof in the story is that Decker does
figure it out.
Right. He ultimately points the way.
Yeah, he needed to. The thing was that Decker continued to try to solve the equation, and Kirk and Spock, when they first had that first communication of "beam me back,"
Yeah.
they're like, "It's time to run.
It's time to get
We
out
got to
of here."
run and get out of here." And Decker was still trying to figure out a way to beat it, and he does. He does figure it out. I mean, the writers give him that redemption. So
Yeah, they give him that arc.
Yep.
And to a larger extent, he gets payback for his crew.
So between the 2 ships going at it, the planet killer diverts from both ships and so it goes back to
It breaks off to devour another
goes
planet.
back to the planet. And then the whole byplay about, look, get this lunatic out of control. And he says, "Let me talk to Spock."
Right.
And Spock's waiting on Deckard. He's not going to supersede his authority.
Right.
He's waiting on Deckard. And Deckard's like, he's being petty now.
He's like, "Come,
take it down.
Take it
down here. So Spock has to walk down and talk from the intercom at the command chair.
Yeah.
And he's like, relieve this guy. Get this guy out of my seat.
And Decker's like, "Kirk, you forget yourself. You can't do that.
You don't have the regs don't allow this." And Kirk's like, on my personal authority, I don't care about the regulation.
My personal authority is Captain of the Enterprise.
We will all burn, but we're not going to die out here.
Or as I heard Or as I heard someone say one time, who do you work for?
That was the thing because from a reg standpoint, they were painted into a corner.
Yeah, they had no leg to stand on.
They had no
Decker
leg to
was in
stand on.
command.
And what Kirk had to do was basically say this: I am leading this mutiny.
Yeah.
I am leading this mutiny personally.
Mm-hmm.
And Spock agreed. And that's what he said. That's what he said.
That's what it meant.
That's
the meaning of what he
meant.
said.
It's
Yeah.
my ship.
And Decker was like, you can't do this. And then Spock goes, I relieve you. And Decker's like, I don't recognize your authority. And Spock goes, don't make me have you arrested.
And the red shirt stepped forward.
Yeah, they did.
And then he looks at Spock, goes, nah, you're bluffing. And Spock goes, nah. Vulcans
never
don't bluff.
And I love the look on Decker's face. He looks at him like, you would, wouldn't you? He looks at him like, no, you don't.
I'll have you dragged out of that seat, kicking and screaming.
And those two security guys are sitting there cracking their
Like,
knuckles.
yeah, let's get Dad from behind the wheel.
But there is a glimpse, to me, there was a glimpse of Commodore Decker at that point, because he looks at Spock and he goes, no, I don't think that you do.
Yeah.
Because he said, that Vulcans never bluff.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, no, I don't think you do. And for that moment, it was like, for me, you could see that sort of...
He was back.
Well, that you kind of got a sense of what kind of leader he was, what type of captain he was, because when push came to shove, he did step down.
He didn't push a bad situation.
He didn't put a bad situation. You could tell that what he was thinking was, I've taken this as far as I can. If I have another option, it's not on this bridge.
Right. So other properties would be, oh, you got to kill me to get me out of here. You got to do this. And you got to.
There would have been a fight.
They'll force a fight when it's unnecessary.
No. You got to remember what you have to demonstrate to the patriarchy now. So all Spock would have done is reached over and nerve pinched him, and he would have fell into the floor, and then they would have dragged
him off the bridge.
That's
bridge.
true, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about what how other properties would have looked at it, or how other stories would have been written.
Pinch-free.
There would have been at least a pinch, at the minimum a pinch.
Yeah.
But at this, Decker, he's still the old man. He goes, yeah, I'm not going to win this battle.
But
you guys are wrong.
But I'll wait for my moment.
You guys are wrong. What you're doing is a violation.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to win this battle. There's no need of me pushing a bad hand.
Right.
I'll fold here and I'll do something else somewhere
Well, the
else.
other thing is he didn't get distracted. He didn't make that the cause of his battle. He wasn't. That's not his fight.
Right.
That wasn't his fight.
Right. His fight is a Doomsday
His
Machine.
fight is a Doomsday.
And protecting Rigel.
Right.
Yep.
So, another one of my favorite parts in the episode.
No, what's funny, he steps out of the seat, he goes to the back, and he's standing there like, I'm still going to look over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Spock goes,
To the sick bay with you.
roll him down to the sick bay so we can get paperwork on him to justify what we just did.
And this is it's great because what they do is they always make sure that Spock has a vulnerability, and that is that he doesn't know how. What do we always say? How older people can beat younger people?
Age and treachery.
Age and treachery. Like because I wouldn't have sent one bully boy with that. I would have sent 4 with Decker. I wouldn't have sent just one guy.
I'd have sent the 2 from the bridge for sure.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
He thought one young cat could handle Decker.
He didn't think that. And logic would dictate that Decker has given in, and he's not going to fight.
Right,
anymore.
and that's the great thing about the
And
way
that's
that
where
they
That
wrote.
was Spock's mistake.
That's why. That's how Spock remained so. You shouldn't have felt the affection for him that you did because he's supposed to be without emotion. Think about that. Think about creating a character that you can't identify with and that doesn't have emotions. But everybody was identifying with him. And the thing is that there was this naivete because he was in an environment that logically he understood how the pieces worked and how things went up and down. But he never could figure out that one component of humanity, which was this illogical component. Because we'll see it later on. We won't give it out there. But Decker makes a choice, and you can see that Spock is confused.
I won't say it's illogical. It's just not linear logic. Decker's still looking at the longer picture. What is logical, from Spock's point of view, is not what's logical to Decker's longer view.
Right.
The big picture, what works for the big picture doesn't necessarily work for the immediate picture.
Right.
So many people today are so busy focused on what today is, they don't think about long term.
Right.
And what works for long term doesn't work for today. It's illogical for today. This is simple religion. You live your life for today. You give up tomorrow, everlasting life in essence. That's simple religion. When you're focused on today, you give up tomorrow. Deckard wasn't focusing on today.
No.
He was focusing on
Tomorrow. Big picture.
But one seems illogical to the other, but both have logical veins.
True. So that was well said. Now I want to get to that incident in the hallway.
Go ahead. Get to your incident.
His red shirt.
It's just a red shirt.
He's a proud papa with his red shirt.
Yeah, they get beat down.
Yeah, but I tell you,
The old man breaks one.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, that red shirt did better against Decker than Kirk did against Tracy.
That red shirt's mistake was he had sympathy for a senior citizen.
Yes, he did.
He fell for that trick.
Yeah, he fell for
Decker, was he coughing or he
well,
was yawning?
that's how. Well, yeah. So
Yeah,
Spock orders him. Spock orders him escorted to the sick bay, and the one crewman takes him, and they're going down the hall. Yeah, and Decker sneezes, and Decker leans to the side and comes back with a haymaker, and it's on. It is one of the better fights.
It was like a judo chop to this
they
nasal bridge. They hit him like bam.
Yeah, they're totally doing it's total judo and jujitsu, and they're going at it. And the young man beats him down, puts him down on the floor like, "Oh man, I'm not the one."
That's right.
But first thing Decker does is disarms him, but the young red shirt puts it on him, but he slacked up. He was like, "Oh, Grandpa, don't you know?"
When Decker goes down on one knee.
Yeah, he was pretending like he was hurt.
He's like, "Oh, Grandpa, I didn't want to hurt you," and then Decker comes up and hits him in the solar plexus and starts putting the boots to him.
We talked about this last time. I don't know what our agreement was. Do we think that Decker killed that red shirt or not? He did not.
You asked the same question last time.
Yeah.
He
just knocked him out and dragged him in the room.
But man, never hear the end of it. You got worked over by that old man.
No, he was in a rare category of Starfleet personnel that would have been beaten down by a ship's captain.
Oh, you was fighting a Commodore. You should have brought help.
Yeah, man. You don't want to take on a captain.
No.
Is that the highest ranking? That's the highest ranking beatdown, right?
Yeah. You don't see any other Commodores get their fists dirty.
No, and no admirals, right?
No admirals. No, not in the old series.
No.
Yeah, I got beat up by a Commodore.
But he beats a young guy down because he has a purpose.
Right.
We don't know what the purpose is yet.
Right.
And we later find on that he's going to the Galileo or
to
one
the
of
shuttle,
the shuttles.
to Shuttle Bay.
And he's going to attempt something.
He stole shuttle number 6.
So Spock's back in control of the ship, and Decker's doing his thing. And he makes his way to a shuttle. And then the next thing we know, we hear
Sulu.
Sulu says the shuttle bay doors are open.
All right.
Someone opened the shuttle bay door. Spock goes, close it. Too late.
And more CGI fan service. The most detailed shuttle bay shot you've ever gotten.
Oh,
yeah.
And the shuttle lifting off the way it should.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, real great shot. And Decker heads out. And this is the part that Jim was referencing where Decker's, and Kirk's talking to him, and Decker's heading for the maw of the Doomsday Machine in a shuttlecraft.
Well, both Spock and Kirk are talking.
Yeah, they're both talking to him.
Well, Spock says, "I must insist you return to the ship."
Decker goes, "No way,
can't do it." He's like, I'm forgetting what Decker said exactly, but he's like, we got to stop this thing, and and I know how we have to do it. Because Spock tells him again, solid neutronium hull. There's nothing you can do. There's no way you can damage it.
And Decker says, "You said it, Mr. Spock. There's nothing from the outside we can do.
Right.
But I'm gonna drive this shuttle right down its throat."
Right.
Yeah.
And in essence, Deckard is sacrificing himself for the billions of people in Rigel.
Right. In the center of the galaxy.
My life means nothing if I can save the billions of people upstream.
Right.
Other than I'm just going to protect myself.
Right.
He's a consummate Starfleet officer to the end.
Right.
Regardless of him being broken, regardless of what happened with his crew, Deckard is willing to sacrifice himself to stop the enemy.
Right.
And you can't really look at it. It's just a machine.
Right.
You have no feelings towards the Doomsday device whatsoever.
It's like trying to fight a tsunami or a tornado.
It just is.
It just is. Yeah.
And Kirk tries to talk him out of it.
Yeah.
And Deckard's like, no, I should have made it this far.
The psychology of it is very interesting because if I think about it, that the Doomsday Machine really only comes after you if you try to hurt it.
True.
You know, it's kind of like a lion or an elephant or something like that. It's like, if you stay away from it and you let it do what it's going to do, it doesn't really have any interest in you. I mean, if you're in a ship, I mean, it's unfortunate if you're on a planet. And
if you're on a planet, it's time to refuel. You got a problem.
Happen to get in the way. But it was like there is this sort of that was when we've said it. We've brought it up as an example in this podcast about the shark in Jaws. I didn't hate it. It was just doing what sharks do. It's feeding.
No, there was a menace to the shark in Jaws. It was going above and beyond. I always felt that way. I always felt
really.
I always felt it was.
Yeah, the movie Jaws gave that you had a feeling that it was going after them.
Yeah, it was not.
It could have eaten something else, but
I guess we could talk about that. At some other point, but
men on boats.
Men on boats. Yeah, I mean, it was swimming past them, but they're the ones that shot it and put barrels on it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? And then at that point, it was sort of like.
Well, that was after it ate 6 teenagers and a dog.
Yeah,
but.
So Deckard's in the shuttle, and he gets his theorem together, and he lets them know, look, I think if we attack it from the inside, we might be able to do something to it.
Right.
And so he goes and he sacrifices himself, and Kirk says, either Kirk or Spock goes, he died for nothing.
Yeah.
And
Sulu goes, Sulu goes.
No, Kirk says. Spock says, hey, I'm sorry for your loss.
Right.
He was a friend of yours. The captain camaraderie, and Kirk goes, yeah, I'm just sorry he died for nothing. And then Sulu chimes in, like, hold on.
Maybe not.
The power level's gone down.
Just a little bit.
And Spock goes, maybe he didn't die for nothing.
Yeah.
And then
just
he starts to look at it.
Just that 1 minute of an episode. So think about it. Like I always said, like Heath Ledger's great performance in the Joker was that he could tell you could take one line and split it into 3 emotional pieces and deliver on that. Mm-hmm. That the beginning of that interaction started with Spock saying, "Captain, I'm sorry for the loss of your friend." Like here you have a Vulcan that in the middle of all this stuff takes a moment to acknowledge that Kirk is probably
having an emotional episode.
Yeah, and then
to have empathy.
And Kirk takes a couple of beats before he responds.
Yes, he does.
Right, and then he says, "I just wish he hadn't died for nothing." Right, and then Sulu goes, "Well, wait a second, I've seen an energy drop," and you kind of take the low point of that. They've kind of touched bottom at that point, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Neither one of them have warp power. They can't get clear to communicate.
Enterprise is on emergency fuel and batteries.
And they said, in 7 hours we're going to run out of all that other stuff. And now we've lost the one guy who's really been focused on solving this problem. And they kind of take a beat and they let you kind of feel it. You're like, I don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
And then just within that one line of Sulu saying there's been a drop in power, now all of a sudden it starts to become, and once again we talk about this, like in the old series, you find out when they do.
Yeah, I love that. I love
that. They don't hide something and they don't like discover something, whatever. You're learning as they're learning.
There's no MacGuffin.
No MacGuffin.
That pops out of nowhere to solve the problem.
And no gotcha moments.
Yeah, It's all there for you.
Right.
It's all there for you. And Spock goes, well, maybe not. And they start looking at it. And he goes, Captain, we can beam you over. And Kirk extends it.
Kirk gets it.
Kirk extends it. He goes, well, hold on.
Hold on.
That was a shuttle, and there was a momentary drop in power.
And
I've got a full
I got a starship.
impulse reactor.
I got a starship, right?
Well, let's see what we can do with this. Let's see what we can do with this thing.
And we get math with Count Spocula.
Right. He says, what is the yield on it?
Well, Kirk goes, isn't the yield on an overloading impulse engine about 97 megatons? Spock goes, no, it's 97.38 megatons.
No, he gives a 3 digits. I think he gives us 0.835.
Yeah, Kirk goes 0.835. like I really needed that.
Kirk's like, whatever. Whatever, Vulcan. 97.
But it's taking the opportunity to turn a loss into a win. And they never would have had the win if it had not been for Decker.
And they built a story. They built a story with enough legacy and infrastructure that you understand and you followed along with, so that when Kirk finally comes up with the idea on how to make this work, you already buy it. You believe it, because what does he say? He says to Scotty, "Can you rig these engines to blow?" And Scotty goes, "Are you kidding me? I've spent the whole episode trying to keep them from exploding. Like, it's not revamp it, balance this, and do this, that, and the other stuff. It's like, can you just...
It's not magic.
It's not magic. It's not magic.
All I got to do is stop doing what I'm doing, and it's going to blow.
You mean take the tape off?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll take the tape off.
The hose I got spraying on it, you just turn that hose off, and you got 30 seconds. So they rig a charge for 30 seconds delay.
I questioned the 30 seconds.
I think it's a math thing, because when they were counting down how close it was getting, probably it's 500 kilometers per.
Because in my head I was like, okay, this is very dramatic, 30 seconds. Couldn't it be longer? And it's just got to go inside the thing. And I was like, no, there's probably actually a moment where it would incinerate the ship and it wouldn't go off.
Well, the classic trope is 10 seconds.
Yeah, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So they said it. Kirk begins maneuvering into position. And
first Spock says, "What's your plan?" And he tells him, and he goes,
"That's not very wise.
That's not a good plan.
Your probability of success is not good.
It's not good."
And everything's hinged on the transporter,
which is broken.
It would have been broken most of the episode.
Right.
But what do the writers do?
Send Scotty over first.
Right. Yeah. Here's what they do. This is a respect for an audience. That's plain and simple. It's respect for an audience. It's not somebody magically becoming an expert overnight or this, that, and the other stuff. What do? You tell the audience up front, look, this is all hinged on these transporters working, right? So who's left to beam over? Scotty. So you beam Scotty over and the transporter goes down.
Hold on. It's not only respect for the audience, it's respect for the characters in the show.
Right. It's consistency.
Scotty's the man.
Right.
Scotty has always been the man.
Right.
If anybody's going to get us through this, it's going to be Scotty. It's not some guy that just figured it out of the blue, some character that just popped up and you don't know any of their background, none of their history. It's respect for the characters. Let me send Scotty over there. You rig this and get over to my ship.
You mean he doesn't grab a little piece of wire and go, I bypassed the blankety blank.
Yeah.
Right, and it just works.
Yeah. And it's not some crewman from Library Sciences doing it.
So when Spock goes, we're having trouble with the transport, and Scotty goes, what trouble are you having?
Well,
and he beams over.
But there's two things I love about that's in this episode, and I talked about one of them before. Two things happen in this scene. One, background thing. Chief Kyle has been promoted to lieutenant, and he's no longer in his coveralls.
Oh yeah, well, nice. Yeah,
Chief Kyle, who was coverall boy before, running the transporter, is now Lieutenant Kyle, and he's got rank now. The other thing is, and I always thought this was cool, when they beam Scotty over and he materializes, he's got this weird look on his face, and he goes, "What's wrong with the transporter?"
Oh, he felt it.
They can feel when they're being beamed, and he felt the difference.
Yes, he did. Because he faded out.
The implications of that.
Tingly on your inner parts?
Wait a minute. No, but the implications of that, I was always like, wait a minute, you feel that?
Yeah.
You don't just go into limbo for a minute and come back.
No, you feel it.
You're in there. You're in there. You're in there getting tingled. I don't like that. I don't like that. And Scotty knows it well enough. To your point,
He goes, "What's wrong with that bloody thing?"
Scotty knows it well enough to go, that tingle is off.
That's right.
And he comes out of the materialization talking about, this is busted.
That's right.
And Mr. Kyle's like, yeah, it's busted. And they start messing with it.
But their whole plan of success for Kirk's survival
Depends on getting the
depends
transport.
on the transport. So Scotty immediately, nobody tells Scotty to go do it. He immediately goes.
He tells him, I got it. I'll go.
I'm gonna go down
And
there.
he goes to the famous
the
Jeffries,
junction.
the Jeffries tube.
Yeah.
And the Jeffries tube was a plot device thought up by Matt Jeffries, because they needed to figure out how to show them doing technical stuff in a space that that was going to be reused.
But I'll tell you, every time that Scotty is in there, man, he sells it.
Yeah.
I mean,
he
he
does
looks
a
like
good
looks like a master.
James Dugan does a good job.
He's just everything he's doing was with purpose. And when he comes out and he hits that comm link and he's like, try it now, like 100%. You're just right there. There's no disbelief. You're like, Scotty just fixed it.
Until the transporter pad explodes.
Oh, they were going through each one. Boom, boom. Just pushing it.
It's building suspense because Kirk is like, okay, we
Gentlemen.
got the fix here,
Gentlemen.
but how do I survive?
and Kirk's on the communicator.
I don't
like,
want to be Decker.
Kirk's on the communicator like, fellas.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, I
Gentlemen.
suggest you bring me aboard.
Kirk's I don't want to be Decker.
Right.
I want to survive
wanna
this.
survive.
I don't want to sell myself
Right.
for the fate of. I want to get out of here.
There was no sacrifice in Kirk at that point.
Yeah. Hey, but yeah, it's great because Kirk's like, guys.
Gentlemen,
Gentlemen,
I suggest you bring me aboard.
this guy's like, working on it. Working on it.
And up to the very last minute where the ship is going into the mall, and then they go, we got him. And Kirk,
Well, the Kirk's beamed over, and you see him. He's just right
He's like,
on that
"Oh."
communicator.
He's on the communicator like,
I think he felt a little bit of the ship going around. him.
Gotta felt that heat. Gotta felt that heat. But, yeah, just the right kind of suspense, not
Well, listen,
tropey.
and listen, they told him. They tell you. Spock says. So does Scotty. Scotty goes. He goes, risking your life on a wonky piece of machinery like a transporter is probably not the best thing to do. He tells him before he beams over. He overhears the plan.
Yeah.
And you're going like, well, because they've said it, it's like Colgate Gardol. Like if you say it, it's not going to happen, and it's like, no, it did happen because they're being honest with us and they're telling us that this is the vulnerability in the plan.
And again, to Mark's point, the transporter has been busted for 3/4 of the episode.
Yep.
It's been partially working or not
inactive,
working. Yeah.
inoperable.
For most of the episode.
Right.
Well, if you think about it, it's probably, and what do I know? But it's probably directly related to the subspace interference, so that the closer the constellation was getting to the planet killer, the more it was interfering with the transporter's ability to lock on and bring that.
I think that's part of it, but when they took one of the shots, they said the transporter was down.
Yeah. And what they've kind of consistently done with the transporter across the other episodes, the transporter is a big power item.
I was going to say, yeah.
It apparently draws a lot of power because if anything, the way they kind of play it, if anything's not working 100%, the transporter becomes questionable.
Yes.
And considering you're scrambling atoms and beaming them
The lights start
miles
dimming.
away.
The lights start dimming. Life support.
Oh. Like,
I always felt, I don't know, I always felt like you could be in your quarters and you hear the transporter. Like it's that much power and it's that much
maybe if you're near
energy.
it. Maybe if you're near the transporter.
The lights start dimming in your room.
It's like, oh man.
Somebody just beamed aboard or beamed off.
You're shaving and the light is.
You know what they would have done in this scene in a new telling? Transporter's busted. Somebody would have run down to the shuttle bay, jumped in a shuttle,
Flew over.
and to sabotage or something, would have flew over there and got Kirk. Would have flew over there and got Kirk and flew out of it just in time. It would have been one of those kind of deals. Kirk would have jumped out of the shuttle bay in a spacesuit, and somebody would have picked him up or in a shuttlecraft or something.
Yeah, it's hard for me to put my head into that.
I could see that with these new writers because
they would have done it.
Some lady in the new franchise jumped out of a boat and swam from one continent, from an island back to a continent.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm happy for her.
Yeah.
That's the craziness of writing nowadays.
But this was the right kind of tension. This was the right kind of nick of time.
No fat.
And again, no MacGuffins, no gotcha moments.
No.
This was all laid out and established. Transporter's defective. Gonna overload the already malfunctioning impulse drive. Okay, this is all in play. Now the question is, will Kirk make it or not, and actually build the right kind of tension where you're not sure.
And will it work?
Yeah.
Right.
You're not sure. You're not sure Kirk will be saved. You're not sure the Doomsday Machine will be destroyed.
Right, because Kirk asked Spock for the numbers, and Spock goes, I can't get past the outer shell of this thing. I can't tell you for sure if this is going to work.
Right.
It's a gamble.
And the math that Kirk is doing is that if it doesn't work,
we're dead anyway.
Right.
So, it's
Let's go for it.
Because the Enterprise can't run at this point. The Enterprise there's no escape if the Doomsday Machine doesn't stop working.
And then we circle back to that theme of respect because Kirk and Spock are walking on the bridge. At this point in season 2, they're kind of doing those final thoughts things. And Spock was like, I assume that your report on Commodore Decker will reflect positively or something. And Kirk is like, absolutely. He did what he needed to do in the line of duty and stuff. Right. So it's like, they made sure they brought that back around instead of,
he's not going to have that spot on his record.
Yeah, and there's no need for it, and it would just weaken Starfleet, and it would just weaken the story overall if you didn't. Like you said, you have to be the crew that's worth saving.
Right.
And if you hold a grudge, or it's about revenge, or there's blame placed, or
nobody's
whatever,
going to care if you survive.
Nobody's going to care if you survive.
And by extension, honor to the entire crew of the Constellation. They went down in the line of duty.
Right.
No, the particular details notwithstanding.
One of the scenes I like coming at the end when Kirk beams over is they show you the Doomsday Machine and the fire on the inside of it goes out.
Well, yeah, the explosion which they remastered in the blue.
Oh yeah.
The blue overload looked cool, and it just goes dark.
Yeah.
And it lists off to the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then they're having their as Captain saying the final moments, the final thoughts, and that Decker gave his life for not only the Enterprise, but for all those people that the Doomsday Machine would have destroyed.
Right.
And so did the crew of his ship.
Yeah.
And then they give you a little smile at the end because Spock says, I can't help to think that maybe there's more of these out there. And Kirk's like, I found one to be enough.
Quite enough.
Yeah.
They did that in a novel. They in one of the novels they find, I think, multiple Doomsday Machines somewhere.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, I don't. Is there such a demand to have another story when you have a story this good?
No, it's bad writers. It's writers who have no real vision.
Not entirely.
No, listen to me on this point. They've taken the old Star Trek episodes, the original, and they're now rewriting them.
They have, yeah.
Retreading them because these people have no artistic vision of their own.
Or they can't get away from, I think somewhat, I don't disagree with you. But I think
something new.
Yeah, but I think there's, with Star Trek in particular, I think you fall into a couple traps. One, the original series hit just about everything that was worth hitting.
Right.
In terms of the human experience and what you want to talk about and the things that still matter to us even now, which is why we're doing this.
Right.
You got that problem where you almost can't do something that's not going to call back
You can do callbacks, but they're totally redoing them.
Well,
they
I'm
redid
not,
Mud.
like I said,
they redid
like
Balance of Terror.
Like I said, I'm not disagreeing with you. But there's I think there's something that leads them down that path.
Yeah, an inability to write anything good.
First of all,
they're hacks. Hacks.
First of all, well, Daystrom sends his regards. But no, they covered things so well in the original series, which is why we're going through this exercise, that you almost can't touch on some of the same themes. But then there's that fan service desire. You kind of want to see it again.
But when you say that, when you say that they can't do, it's been done. What you're saying in essence has been done already.
Yeah.
But you have Babylon 5, which had great stories that were not Star Trek stories.
That's true. Total great story.
You have The Expanse, which are great stories that are not Star Trek stories.
I don't disagree.
It's a matter of these.
People writing Trek are allowing themselves to fall into a trap.
They're hacks.
Okay.
Because there's other science fiction properties that are doing good stories. Yeah. Why are you guys retreading great stories? Come up with something new.
Well, that's the assumption, right? And I think that's something that Lucas always touched him on. He said, I always try to create new worlds and new characters and new weapons and new ships because listen, we enjoyed the Gorn as much as anybody. I think that's one of our favorite episodes.
Absolutely.
But I never have to see the Gorn again. I don't.
I wouldn't mind seeing them again just in an expanded context because we only get a glimpse of them, but that could be a more original story too.
Right. Give me something new. Don't totally rehash the whole first series.
Yeah.
And then prop it off as something new because you're coming at it from a different captain.
The problem that I have with it is that you're bringing back things that have already been defeated, and we already know what their vulnerabilities are. Yeah. The thing that I hated about the Borg was that as soon as you figured out how to beat them, they said nope. They neutralized that. Yeah, and then the next thing you do, then they neutralize that, and the next thing you do is they neutralize that, and then how do you ever end up beating that?
You don't. You shouldn't.
You don't, and you shouldn't, but then you do because then everybody just goes to sleep.
Plot device.
Yeah, and it's like, I know how to beat the Doomsday Machine. All you have to do is put a 97.835 megaton antimatter bomb in its maw, and
or a megaton bomb.
Yeah, and so you could tell me what it does before I get there, but I'm gonna have a shuttle that's loaded up, and I'm just gonna remote pilot it in there. Right. You don't need it anymore. Right. It was. What's wrong with it being good enough? That was good enough. It was fine. Like to Captain Daystrom's point, think of something new. Yeah. Think of something else to entertain us. Why keep recycling and rehashing these story ideas? I never want to see a remake of Blade Runner. I don't want to see a remake of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I never want to see a remake of Star Wars Episode 4.
You already have.
I don't want to ever see a remake of Wrath of Khan.
Kind of already have.
Yeah. I mean, who are they checking with? I don't want to see a remake.
They're taking the easy way out.
They're taking the easy way out, and they're thinking, okay, this is for a different generation.
But it's not.
Come up with a new story. But this is.
I don't want to see a Pike outside of the cage. And
I like the idea of seeing Pike's tenure as captain, but when you overlap it and change the continuity of Kirk, that's the problem.
That's my problem.
You never knew in the stories of Kirk of how the story ended.
No.
When you introduce a character that you already know the end of it.
Oh yeah.
When you already know how they're going to die, you already know how this ends, unless of course you do that alternate reality.
Well, that's kind of what they do.
What an excuse not to do the work.
My problem with that show is not that they created a Pike show, but they gave Pike Kirk's credit.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
Well, they did just what Jim said. They created an alternate timeline where they could do something different, and Kirk's there. Young Kirk is there.
What they're doing, Hollywood is doing today, is diminishing the great characters we've had. You're diminishing them. We've already talked about that other property where the greatest pilot in the world, his piloting skill was nothing but the ship's computer.
That's not entirely true.
Yeah.
No, I actually checked it out because you kept saying that, and I couldn't stand it. That's not entirely.
Well, the impression is that in other words, why there's this. What was this? Peter O'Toole was in this movie about. It was a comedy, and he was a movie star, and he was going to be on television, and there was a writer there. It's like My Greatest Year or something like that, and. Peter O'Toole finds out that he goes, I'm feeling great, and I think I can do this in 3 takes. And he's like, 3 takes? This is live television. You have to do this in 1. And he's like, there's no way I can do that. And the guy says to him, he goes, I never want to hear that. He goes, I want my heroes bigger than life. I never want to know that my heroes are not
great off the top.
Not great off the top. There are other stories about other people, but stories about heroes, whether like. I'll give you a great thing, like Ripley in Aliens.
Yeah.
You know,
the greatest female protagonist there is.
Yeah,
one of them. Definitely an argument for that. Yeah.
Definitely an argument of it. She dies, and then they bring her back as some sort of like symbiote.
They cloned her. Yeah, they literally cloned her.
Yeah, and why? You know, I mean, like, Can't we have a memory of Ripley that we all like? We talk about the Michael Moorcock books with Elric.
Elric of Melniboné.
I've never read the last book. Why? Because in my head, Elric's still Elric. He's still alive. I know in the last book what happens.
The Witcher is a copy of it.
Yeah.
They ripped off of Michael Moorcock, the Witcher series.
But when you introduce a character in an alternate timeline that I already know what happens to them. I don't know. Maybe it's a generational thing, but I'm telling you, the way that stories have been told for thousands of generations is that there's in the beginning this happened, and in the end this is what happens, and then you're saying, well, no, let's just reinvent that. You already know how this ends, but what we're going to do is rewrite it so that it ends in a different.
Show you how they.
It's just
show you how they get there, or show you how the ending is.
Yeah, it's just not good
altered.
Storytelling. Tell a story to a 5-year-old, and if they don't like it, you're not doing something right.
It's lazy, and they're hacks.
Okay. Like I said, no argument. I just know how they fall into the trap. But Doomsday Machine does not have any of those problems.
No.
Doomsday Machine does not have any of those problems. 3 out of 3 say Doomsday Machine is the best episode, and that can start a serious argument because there's several other fantastic episodes that I'm sure everybody loves. Put your favorite episode in the comment.
But we don't care.
No, we do.
It's
care.
Doomsday is our favorite.
We do care. We just disagree.
We
disagree.
We don't care. I don't disagree with you. That's your favorite. That's your favorite. I don't care what your favorite is.
I want to know what their favorite is.
I don't care what my favorite is.
I want to know what 200.
And my favorite
I want
is
to know
Doomsday.
I want to know what our 200.
And I command Doomsday to be your favorite and yours.
No. Well, not because you say so.
Yes, because
I agree. But I want to hear from the other 200 people. And see what their favorite.
But seriously, if you, we couldn't recommend it more highly. In that, if you wanted to introduce somebody to the original series,
I can see someone saying, "Well, you guys are just a bunch of fanboys." Yes, I am.
Yeah,
I'm a fanboy of the original series.
Right.
Fan man.
Thank you. Men's on track.
And on track. Doomsday Machine Redux. Now you can see it. So that's it. Doomsday Machine, #1 episode in our opinion. What's yours? Click like and subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. See you next time.